Good morning. I'm Linda with Pinky Mouse Cakes, Cookies, and Candy, also known as Pinky Mouse Sisters in the Kitchen. And Mary is on her way home. I don't know if I should get this closer or not. She's on her way home from Wichita Falls. She spent the night last night with Charles Linnell, and of course she misses being here, and I miss her too. But today I'm going to get started right away because I've got several steps that I've got to do. So I want to welcome everyone to my kitchen. And it is a gorgeous day here in East Texas. The sun's shining real bright. I had to kind of close the blind a little bit. It was so bright, it was glaring on my phone. So today we are making, or I'm making, a deep dish peach pie. Some people might call it a cobbler, but it's not a cobbler. It's a deep dish peach pie. So I've already made a small one this morning, a small apple one, and I'll show y'all that one in a little bit. And I don't like doing these videos in two parts, but I'm going to probably have to come back on later today to actually show y'all how I take it off of the spring form pan, and I use a cake lifter. This is a Wilton. Fat Daddy-O has one. I have one of them. I think that's Walmart, not Walmart, Hobby Lobby brand, I believe, has one. And I'm sure there's lots of others. So what this is a really thin, it's just a giant spatula is what it is. But it's, if you do cakes and you're a baker and or maybe you just cook a lot for your family and make a lot of cakes for your family, these are a must-have. They're not expensive. You can get them at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. You can order them from Amazon. You can get them at Tuesday morning. Sometimes TJ Maxx. It depends. Their merchandise goes and comes. So if you see something you like, and I've said this many times before, in one of the discount stores like TJ Maxx or Tuesday Morning or Home Goods or Marshall's, you need to get it if there's something you want, because trust me, there's been many times that I went back to get something and it was already gone. So if you see something that's a good price, you'll want to grab it real quick. So if you use like a regular spatula that you have in your utility drawer, more than likely it's going to be too thick to lift up something. And I don't know what the proper name of this is. I call it a cake lifter. But anyway, I want to show y'all that. So I'm going to get started right now doing the pie crust. And I am using Pillsbury, the rollout pie crust. If you're going to use a store-bought pie crust, this is my favorite. That doesn't mean that you don't have a favorite one. That's just my favorite. So you want them to be at room temperature. And I'm going to dust my pastry mat with a little bit of flour. And normally I would make a big deep dish peach pie or whatever kind of pie. I've made apple, I've made mixed berry, you can make blackberry, blueberry, peach, whatever kind of fruit you want to use. But because I didn't want to just give someone a big peach pie, I wanted to spread the love. So I'm making small ones. So this is, I think it's a 7-inch pan. And that's what I'm using today. And for those of you who don't know, when you take these apart, there is a proper way to put them back together. That lid, I don't know if you can see this or not, but that lip, that needs to set in your pan. If you put it the other way, it's not going to hold. So make sure that the lip is coming up and not going down. If you're trying to put your pan together and you're wondering why it's not catching, that's probably the reason. So just make sure that. I'm going to lightly oil this, just with a little bit of vegetable oil. Now, you may or may not agree with this, but this is what I do. And this is my kitchen, so I'm showing y'all how I do it. So I'm just going to lightly grease it, or oil it. Grease is probably not the right word. You don't want it standing in it. You just want just a little bit on there. And because this is, I've got a small one too. I've got all sizes of these. I've got little tiny individual ones. I've got 10-inch, 12-inch, 9-inch. I've got a whole bunch of them, and Pampered Chef has one too, but it was not the size that I wanted to use. I believe that one is a 9-inch. So I got these little 7-inch ones out. So just unroll your pie crust. And if it's at room temperature, it's not going to tear. And because this one is, I'm using the 7-inch pan, I'm not even going to roll this out any thinner. I'm going to use it like it is. Now, if you're using the store-bought, you will need the box, which there's 2 comes in a box, and you will need both of those to do one of these pies. If you're doing a big pie, you're going to need probably 2, because you're going to have to add some to this, because it won't be big enough for it to be a deep dish. Because I'll show you how I'm going to do it. This pie crust has got to come up on the sides of the pan. So you see this is a small pan, but it's about 3 inches deep, and you want the pie dough to come up almost to the top. That's what makes it be a deep dish pie. So I'm going to get this up here, and I'm going to fold my pastry mat over because I'm not done with it. I'm going to use it again in a minute. You need a lot of pie weights, and you may think that you got enough, but I'll show you what I used, and I had to add some to it. And you can get these at Bed Bath & Beyond. You can order them from Amazon, and try to get this centered in the middle. And it's going to fall down because you don't have your pie weights in there yet. Now this is a rustic pie, so you want these folds in here. Your crust is going to have some little folds or pleats in it. And I'm going to, and you don't have to worry about them being any certain way because it is rustic. And I'm going to take a parchment round. This is an 8-inch parchment round, so it's a little bit bigger than the pan. I'm going to just kind of press this down in here. I'm hoping that y'all can see what I'm doing here. I have my oven on 450 because that's what you want to bake pie crust at, is 450. So you'll see that there's no, these are not even, and I want them like that because this is a rustic pie, and it makes it look real. It makes it look homemade. It doesn't look like something that has been measured and perfect. So I'm going to pour pie weights in here. Now these are ceramic balls. You can get, I think you can get different kind of pie weights. You can use beans or I don't know. I think some people might use rice, but rice is not very heavy. I prefer the pie weights because you use them over and over and over, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pour these in here. It's going to make some noise. Now that looks like a lot, but actually I'm going to add some to it, because this is what I used this morning and it wasn't quite enough. So what you want, you'll see right there that those pie weights are not up to that pie crust, up to the top. So I'm going to add some more. And what that does, that makes that pie crust cook standing up, and it's not going to fold over. The one I did this morning, it started to fold over a little bit, and I fixed it. But just to keep from doing that, you just want to pour some more in here. Not to worry, I have got plenty of pie weights. I've got another sack full here. Now, I'll give you a little word of advice. When you take these out of the oven, these are ceramic balls, and that means it will always lose some during the process. If you try to pick these up or you touch one with one of your fingers, when you take this out of the oven, it's apt to take some skin off your finger. So make sure that you let this, put it in a cool place and let it cool after you take it out of the oven. Now, I'm not going to completely cook this pie crust. I'm going to blind bake it. I'm going to bake it at 450 for about, probably for about maybe 10 minutes. And now this is heavy because it's got all those little ceramic balls in it. You can see it's almost up to there. And I've just got a little 9x13 sheet pan. And I'm going to stick it in there and put it in the oven. And set my timer for 10 minutes. Now, I think what I'm going to do while I'm sitting here, because I'm going to have to do this in 2 different videos anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and do my lattice for the top. And so we'll get some more flour on here. And you can see I've got one left from the one that I did this morning. This is an old Wilton roller. You can get different rollers, but this is one that I've had for a long time. I don't think they even make this one anymore. A lot of my baking stuff is old because I've had it for so long. So, you know how companies do. They come up with new items or they redesign it, and then the one that you look for, they don't actually have that one. But you can get rollers. It doesn't have to be this kind. You can get rollers, different brands. You can get just about anything on Amazon that you can't find in a store. And sometimes I find it's easier to order on Amazon because you're not running all over town trying to find something and hit and miss and going to 5 stores and wasting 2 hours and you still don't have what you want. So, you know, especially if you have Prime Time and you don't have to pay for shipping, you know, to me it's just easier sometimes just to order it. So I'm going to skip over just a little bit here, and I'm going to roll this out. And you'll see you want to leave enough space for that one. And sometimes it rolls up on your roller. Just move it over or unroll it. Okay, so now I got my little strands for my lattice. And I've got, let's see, how am I going to do this? Mama used to say, "Let me see," said the blind mice. So let's see here. I've got another sheet pan, and I've got it lined with parchment. You can see that I have all different shapes and sizes of parchment. And it's so easy just to pick one up and pop it in there. It makes all the difference in the world when you're cooking, as far as a time saver, to not to have to stop and measure and cut something. This is perfect for that pan. And some of this stuff, you know, I get sometimes at that discount store in Town Talk. Oh, and by the way, we are sponsored by Imperial Sugar, and I'm using Imperial Sugar. You'll see that a little bit later on when I get over there to the peaches. And I got my cinnamon and sugar here. I got some melted butter. And let me get this over here, and let's see how I can work this to where, oh, I think I know what I can do. I think I can turn this around like this. So there's several different ways you can measure this, because you want it a little bit smaller than the pan you're using. Now this is just a round circle. This is a paper plate. This is a cake circle. These come in all sizes. But if you don't want to go out and buy all this stuff, you can use the bottom of a bowl to measure, to make sure you've got it the right size. And you want it a little bit smaller than your pan, because this is going to sit down on top of your pie filling, and you want to make sure that it's not too large, because you want it to adhere is that right? Is that how you say it? To the pie. So you want it a tiny bit smaller. I actually had to trim mine this morning, but I just got these out to show you. Again, you can cut a circle. Mama and Aunt Elsie used to cut their circles, hand cut their circles, bless their hearts. You know, they didn't know, and of course back then you probably couldn't get as much stuff as you can today, but they spent hours doing stuff like that, you know, I just reach in my little stash of stuff and pull out what I want, and it just makes all the difference in the world. So I'm going to just start here, and I'm going to lay out some strips. You want to do a little space between them because you're creating a lattice. Some of them I didn't get exactly the same size, I don't think. Okay. So that looks like that's about right. I might add one more. That'll be too big, but anyway, I'll get that fixed. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one on the top, and it's just a lattice. Go in, go out, go in, go out. Just make sure you keep that space between them. And then the next one, I'll pull this up. And just keep going until you get your lattice big enough that's going to be big enough for the circle that you need. All right, let's see here. I'll do one more. It's not going to take it, but I'll go ahead and do one more. Now, you're going to be cutting this off. You're going to be trimming it. So if you want to, say you got your pie filling too thin, or you wanted to add a little extra texture to your pie filling, and I'll show you my little pieces over there in a minute. Save these little strips, and you can just layer them in your pie filling. It just gives it a little bit extra texture and a little bit of extra taste. So this is obviously going to be bigger than what we need. And I'm probably just going to go ahead and put these on here because I'm not going to save these little strips. So I'll just put them on here and go ahead and butter these two. I'm gonna measure it first and then cut it with a pizza roller, and then I'm going to brush it with butter and sprinkle it with cinnamon and sugar. So let's do it like this, and just take your pizza cutter and just go around it just like you're cutting a circle. Okay, now if you see, well, I got the other pan in the oven, so I can't show you, but it's a big possibility that you will need to trim this again. And it can be done, and it's not hard. It's just you want to be careful when you're trimming it because you don't want to break your pretty lattice. Grandma Hooper, Molly's mother, and her sisters, Molly's sisters, they always made the most beautiful pies. Y'all probably heard us say, most of you, that they had their own orchard, and they had all kinds of fruit. Now this is my melted butter. There's nothing in it, just melted butter, and it is real butter, and it's salted. So when harvest season came, they had all this beautiful fruit and to put up, and of course back then there were no freezers, so they canned it or dried it. They may have dried some of it. I really don't know. I just know that I know at Christmas time and Thanksgiving and holidays, they would have had a very tiny little kitchen. They would have that kitchen just pies literally everywhere. I mean, that was their specialty, was pies, and they sure knew how to make them too. So it's no wonder that Molly was such a good cook, because she got it from her mama. And Grandma Hooper died when I was in the 7th grade, so I remember her well. Grandpa Hooper, I was in elementary school when he died, and I also remember him real well. He wore a long beard, and they lived in a wood frame house right there on Highway 7 in Aiken, and that's between Nacogdoches and Center. As far as I know, it never had a drop of paint on it, on the house, inside nor out. There was a long front porch that went all the way the length of the house, and the it was gated, and they had a little gate, and they had a storm house in the front because, you know, East Texas, most everybody had storm houses because of the storms. And there was times that we were there when we all went in it when the weather got so bad. But Grandma Hooper, she always wore an apron, and she always had a handkerchief or dish towel or something in her apron pockets. And when we would drive up, she would meet us at the gate. That's how old timers used to do, hugging everybody's necks. So this is cinnamon and sugar, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it with cinnamon and sugar. I'm gonna give it a pretty good dose, and I'm gonna put this in the oven. Now, you normally bake pie crust for 15 minutes on 450. But I'm not going to bake this long because these are strips, and with this butter and cinnamon on it, you don't want to get it too done. So I'm going to set the timer for probably 10 minutes and check it. Now, once it's cool, I'll show y'all how to lift it up using the cake lifter. So I'm going to move over here to the oven. My buzzer went off for this, so I'm going to take this out first. And I think I'm going to let that cook about 10 more minutes. Not 10 more minutes, about 2 more minutes. You can pretty much tell when you want to take it out or not, and I'm going to put it for about 2 more minutes, and I'm going to put this in the oven. I'll set the timer for 2 minutes. And then I'll change the timer to bake the crust. I've got my burner on here for to cook the peaches with. And you'll see that I've got a bag of fresh peaches. And these are, you can tell how beautiful they are. They're very, very colorful. And it's a lot of difference in fresh peaches and frozen peaches. And I told somebody the other day, I will not make fried pies, a peach cobbler, or a deep dish pie unless I have fresh peaches. To me, there's just no comparison. And I'm not faulting anyone that does. Mama used canned peaches a lot, but I just don't like using canned peaches. I like fresh ones. So I'm going to have to try to get some this year because I don't have many left. And so I'm going to have to get some. These are the scraps that I had from earlier this morning from where I did the other pie. You can tell they're real crisp. A lot of bakers save these and eat them as a snack. And I'm not going to eat them, but they certainly are good to eat. So get this boiler hot. I think it's getting hot here. So I'm going to put these in there. And normally, when I put peaches up, I put them up with sugar. And that's how I usually always do them. I'm not positive, but I think Mike did these because they do not have sugar in them. So I'm going to have to add sugar. Now, if you had peaches that you had either canned, fresh peaches that you canned, or frozen peaches that you put up and they've got sugar in them, then you definitely are going to want to cut down the sugar from the recipe that I post, or that Linda posted on the members page. So keep that in mind when you're looking at our recipes. If you've got something that adds sugar in it, well, then you need to adjust that. So I'm going to pour this in here, and you'll see that this has got a lot of water in it. Okay, now I'm going to take this out. Put this in here. I've got you can tell that those are, see how shiny those ceramic balls are? They are hot tamale. I'm going to take this off the bottom shelf and put it up around. Set my timer back on 8 minutes. And peaches have a lot of water in them. So I'm probably going to adjust the water also. And you can tell when you're doing something about how much water, if any, you need to add. So I'm going to just pour these in here. I am going to rinse out my bag because I want this good stuff in this bag to go in there. So just a little bit of water. Just put probably maybe a fourth a cup of water in there. And I realize that's not what I got on the recipe, but again, you'll have to adjust that accordingly. Now I've got 2 cups of sugar here. This is Imperial Extra Fine Sugar. And I think on the recipe I put a little bit more. I think I put 2 1/4 or something like that, but I'm only going to do 2 cups. And I'm going to do, I believe it was 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Oh, it's a tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm glad I looked at that. I'm going to do a tablespoon of the good cinnamon. Somebody the other day asked where we get this at. And I'm not saying you couldn't buy this anywhere. I've never seen it anywhere. It's Korenje cinnamon. And that is cinnamon that chefs use when they're baking. And Pampered Chef only sells it the fall of the year. So I always stock up to make sure I've got plenty. This is really good cinnamon. And then I'm going to put just a pinch of allspice. Probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon. You don't want a whole lot because you don't want to overpower the cinnamon. I'm also going to put about the same of nutmeg, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Whoops. Getting stuff all over the place. And then I'm going to put just a pinch of salt. Ooh. I use sea salt. This is Pacific Blue. You can't get it in this container anymore, but you can get it. It comes in a little pouch, and I ordered this from Amazon too. And I'm going to put probably about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in here. Because you won't always want to put salt in fresh fruit. It just kind of takes that blah taste off of it. And I'm going to mix this together, just whisk it together. So you don't get one big blob of salt or one big blob of allspice or cinnamon. Now you don't cook these peaches long. Peaches are a soft fruit. And if you stir them, you'll stir them all to pieces. So you want to keep the stirring to a minimum. I see that nutmeg in there. It's kind of little big pieces on there. So I'm going to pour this in here. Now those peaches were cold, so it's going to take just a minute to come up. I'm just going to pour this in here like that. This out of the way. And I'm going to stir this real good. Get that stirred up in there. And I'm not tasting of this. I don't like not tasting of something when I'm cooking, but I've done this so many times. I'm confident in what the amounts that I have in there. So I'm not, that's why I'm not tasting it. You can tell there's a lot of liquid in here. Look at all those good spices. That smells so good. I think these peaches are the peaches that Jamie gave me brought me last year for my birthday. Jamie from Texarkana. So thank you, Jamie. I'm using your peaches today. So you're going to have a thickening to get this thick. So what I'm using is I'm going to use cornstarch. And I'll get this mixed up in a few minutes. And you're just mixing it with tap water. Doesn't have to be ice cold, but it cannot be hot or warm. It needs to be at least room temperature, or it will not dissolve. It'll be clumpy. I never will forget one time we were making fried pies in Jackson at my church, Jesus Name Tabernacle, and there was when I say elderly, and it's kind of comical now because I fit in that category, but she was an elderly woman, and she was fixing well, you know, we were doing the filling, and she was getting the cornstarch, and she had the hot water. I could see the smoke from the hot water, and she's fixing to mix up the cornstarch, and I started hollering, no, 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 no. You know, we're always taught to respect our elders. I said, you can't mix it with hot water. It's got to be cold water, and I was just a kid. But I remember very well, and she said she didn't know that. She didn't know you mixed cornstarch with cold water. So you definitely want to mix it with cold water. And you don't want to add it until these peaches kind of come to a boil. And you see that sugar's already dissolved. That's one thing about imperial sugar. It dissolves so quickly. You don't have to worry about, you know, it being taking a long time to cook or dissolve. So I love using it. I get that going here. I've got my butter. After it gets done and I get it thickened, we're going to add some butter and we're going to add some vanilla, and then it has to cool. And this has to be done in stages, just like a lot of baking does. You can't just put something together in 30 minutes, 45 minutes time and expect it to turn out right. And that's why a lot of people make mistakes when they're baking, because they get in a hurry. And Mama she was a no-nonsense person. She was very practical. She did not like fooling around. She didn't like wasting time. And she got in a hurry a lot. She could have a meal on the table pronto. But when you're doing something like baking, you have to keep in mind, and normally, like when you plan a menu and you know exactly what you're going to have, well, when you're planning to bake something, you need to look at the recipe and know, you know, how many minutes it's going to take for each step. Like for this, you know, you got to pre-bake the pie crust. That's got to cool. You got to take the pie weights out. You got to make your filling. It's got to cool. And then you go to the next step, which is add your, you know, empty the pie weights, add your pie filling. Well, you have to brush the bottom with an egg first, and that keeps that crust from getting soggy. And then you add your pie filling, and then you place the top on it, put it back in the oven and cook it. And then after it's done, it has to cool completely before you take it off of the bottom of that springform pan. Now, if you want to take it off of the bottom and have it on a real pretty pie plate, you know, you need to do that. If you want to serve it straight from the tin that goes to the bottom of the springform pan, then you might not have to let it cool as long, but you will need to let it cool some, because if you're going to slice it like a pie, it needs to be cool before you do that, because if you don't, it's gonna fall apart, or it could fall apart. Okay, let's see here. I believe these are ready. Ouch. Hot. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and turn that oven off, but you can see that these are all ready. So I'm going to put these in here in the utility room and let these cool. And I cook those for about 10 minutes. Now, depending on your oven, you might not need to cook them 10 minutes because, remember, they're strips. It's not the whole pie crust, so it doesn't take as long to cook it. Get this coming up here. It looks like it's getting close to starting to cook, but it hasn't totally. I want y'all to be able to see it. Oh my goodness. I see a peach seed in here. I sure am glad I saw that. Mike would never believe he missed that. He'd probably say I did it. But I didn't, because I put sugar in mine. Make sure there's not another one in here. Okay, I don't see another one. I sure am glad I saw that. I wouldn't have wanted somebody to bit down on a peach seed. We used to have the most beautiful peach tree in our yard. I'll have to see if I can find some pictures of the peaches one day. The peaches they were bigger than a big apple. I mean, they were the biggest peaches that I have ever seen in my life, and it died. So we only had it for a few years, but it sure did produce beautiful peaches. And over the weekend, Panola Orchard is where we go to get strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, peaches, and I've been down there for years getting stuff, and I like to pick them when I can. I don't pick the peaches, but I pick the blackberries and blueberries and strawberries. Well, I had planned to go. My cousin from Nacogdoches and her friend went, not this past weekend, but weekend before that. Well, Saturday morning when I got up, there was a thing on Facebook that said that the hail had heavily damaged their strawberries. They've been open 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and they're usually, strawberry season usually overlaps with blackberries and blueberries. So they're open until way on in the summer, and then the peaches come in. But they had gotten one of those really bad storms the night that the storms were coming through and damaged their strawberries, and I felt so bad, and I still feel bad. When you pick them, they're $3.85 a pound, and you can spend a lot of money there, but the strawberries are so good. And they were telling everybody that wanted to come pick that they could pick them for $2 a pound, but that they were damaged and they were soft, and that it was a lot of water, so you have to have boots to go out there and pick them. And I really did think about going, and the more I thought about it, I just didn't think that I wanted to do it because of my back. But then before the end of the day, they said they were closed until further notice, and it just broke my heart because you can't plan on weather. But this is, as far as I can remember, this is the first time that's happened, and I know they took such a loss and such a hit because of that. And had I gone, I was going to pay them full price for it, because I just felt like, it was just the right thing to do, because I would have made jelly out of them or pies. But I just chose not to go, but it sure did make me feel bad because they lost a lot of revenue from the storm damage. So I'm hoping that the blackberry and the blueberry and the peach season makes up for it, so it can take up some of the slack, because anybody that's never farmed or don't know, it's hard work, and it's not cheap to do it. It takes a lot of money, takes a lot of manpower, and it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting into something like that. You go to pick, and all you see is the fruits of their labor, but you don't see the hours and the money that went in to make that beautiful fruit. So it did make me feel very bad. Okay, this is starting to boil, and I think it's going to need quite a bit of cornstarch in it because it is pretty liquidy. So I'm going to put probably the full amount in the recipe, which was 3/4 of a cup of cornstarch. And you just want to add enough water to kind of mix this together. You want it pourable. I hope I'm talking loud enough. Seems like I haven't been talking very loud this morning. You can do this with the whisk. I just grabbed a fork. Make sure that you get it stirred up really good. Okay, that's boiling really nice. Now, when you're pouring cornstarch in something, you want to make sure that you pour with one hand and stir with the other. Because if you just pour it all in there at once and are not stirring, you're going to have a big mess. So you can see that's kind of, it's thin, but it's pourable. That's how I want it. See, it coats the back of your fork. All right, let's see if y'all can see this. I'm just going to kind of stream it. I don't know if you can see it better if I'm doing it like this or not. You can feel it as it's starting to thicken, and that way you're not pouring it all at once, but you've got to have this thick enough that it's going to set, so when you pour it in your pie crust, that it's not going to all be runny and run out. And once you put cornstarch in something, it does get thicker as it sets, so keep that in mind too. And for novice cooks, this might be a little intimidating, but just keep in mind that the more you do this, see this right here, that liquid, that's too liquidy. Now this would be perfect for a cobbler if you wanted to put it in a baking dish and just put pie crust, however you do your pie crust. I do mine in strips and layers, and this would be perfect for that because that would soak up all that good crust, but it's too thin for what I want it for. So I'm going to pour some more in here. Now you can tell it's getting thicker, but it's still not quite where I want it because you still got quite a bit of juice in it. Now I'm stirring this very gently because I do not want to just mess my peaches up. I'm going to turn that burner off, and I want you to look how much more thicker that is than it was. Just go ahead and put the rest of it in here. It's not much. So it took that full amount, about 3/4 of a cup of cornstarch, and we're going to turn that off, and I'm actually going to set it off of the burner because I don't want it to keep bubbling. See how much thicker that is now? Now I'm going to put my butter in. This is about a tablespoon. And I'm going to just eyeball about a teaspoon of vanilla. And this is vanilla extract. And you just want to give this a stir. That vanilla smells so good. I love to smell vanilla. Now this is going to make more than that 6-inch or that 7-inch pie crust that I've got in there, and I think it will probably make 2, and that's what I'm planning on because I'm going to move the camera back over here. That's what I'm planning on because I want to give these to 3 different people. So that's the reason that I made the small ones instead of making a big one. So this is the apple one that I made this morning. And I have blackberries in the freezer, but I had some apples that I needed to use, and this is still too warm to take out. But this is my apple pie crust, and you can tell, or my apple deep dish pie pan. I'll get it right in a minute. So these are beautiful if you're doing a dessert table and you have real pretty little pedestal stands to put them on. And I like them at different sizes. Y'all may remember me telling y'all about a wedding that I did a couple of years ago. I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. I don't even remember how long it's been. I did the bridal cake was lemon blueberry, and I made it with fresh blueberries from Panola that I'd got at Panola, and of course fresh lemon juice. No substitute for fresh in my opinion. And it was a big cake. It was a 3-tiered cake, but the groom didn't want a cake. And the bride, when I met with her for a consultation, she said, he wants cobblers. Can you fix, not cobblers, he wants pies. Can you fix those? And I said, yes, I can fix those. So she wanted 3 pies, and she wanted fruit pies, and she wanted a mixed berry, she wanted a peach, and she wanted an apple. So I made them all different sizes, and it was at the Excelsior Hotel in town, which for those of you who are history buffs like I am, the Excelsior Hotel is owned and operated by the Jesse Allen Wise Flower Garden Club. I'm not sure that's the correct name, but it's a group of ladies, and they own and maintain and run the hotel. It is the oldest operating hotel in the entire state. It is phenomenal. If you ever get to come to Jefferson, and I know many of our viewers have been, it's an awesome place to visit. There's a courtyard where they have many weddings at. Their dining room, or not dining room, but the room where they have the reception room, I guess is what it's called. There's a huge big grand piano, and they have it just fixed up. Looks like a magazine when you go in there. It's so beautiful. And I went over there this weekend and just took a few pictures, and it's just a beautiful, old nostalgic piece of history for the state of Texas. And so they had the stands, and I had the free stand, and these were just on the pie plates. There was no pie thing on, they were completely out of the pan, and on these tiered pie plates, and then her cake was in the middle. And it was a beautiful, beautiful display. And they texted me not long after the wedding, which most of the time brides would text me and tell me, you know, about the cake and how everyone enjoyed it. But she told me that there was not one crumb left of the cake nor any of the pies, that every bit of it was devoured. And there's nothing more that a baker likes to hear than people loved your baked goods. So it always made me feel good. So once this gets cool, I will take this out of the pan, and I will use my cake lifter to go up under, and I'm going to do this live. I'll be doing the peach ones and this one, so it's going to be later on today when I do this, because they're going to have to completely cool. But the way it's done is, you know, of course, after it's cooled, and I wouldn't advise to put them in the refrigerator. I would advise to let them cool at room temperature, because if you put it in the refrigerator, it might be too hard to get unstuck. So you want to let them cool at room temperature. So, you know, you undo the pan, and then you got your bottom, and this is where the pie is sitting. And then you start on the edge, you get your lifter under there, and you go around just a little bit of it at a time, and then you just inch your way into the center until you know the pie crust is completely loose, and then you just lift it up and put it on your serving platter. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's fun too. It's something that I love to do, bake. And other than singing, being with my family, there's not too much more that tops baking besides those two things, and I love those. So I hope that y'all have enjoyed this. I know it hasn't been completely the hour, and it's not finished because I'm going to have to come back on and do the rest of it, because my fillings got to cool, my pies got to cool, and then after I bake them, they've got to completely cool. But sometimes before the day's over, later on today, I'll be back on for a few minutes, and I'll show y'all these, and I'll take one of them out live on air. Hopefully it'll come out good. Hopefully I won't make a mess of it since I'm doing it live. You never know when you're doing something live how it's going to turn out. But thank y'all for joining me. I hope that each one of you will continue to like and share our page. You know, we realize that our page is not for everybody, but I know there's a lot of people that like to watch something that you get enjoyment out of, and hopefully you learn a few things along the way. And we just appreciate y'all so much. We'll be, Lord willing, we'll be together tomorrow. I'll be cooking here again tomorrow, and then we'll be at Mary's Wednesday. So I will not create the event for this afternoon because I don't know exactly what time it will be. But if you don't get to catch me live, make sure that you watch us on replay. So thank you very much. God bless. Be sure to show kindness to someone, and always, always count your blessings. No matter what situation or what season of life you're in, there is always something to be thankful for. And I want to always be that person that is first to give thanks, because we are a blessed people. I'm a blessed person, and I want to acknowledge that. So thank you all very much, and we count y'all as our blessings. I'll be back later on today, and we'll get this finished. So I love y'all. God bless, and I will see y'all later today. Bye-bye.